Good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. How are you? I um I wanted to drop a tip in the group because I know that a lot of times people don't talk about um the logistics, day-to-day stuff of nonprofits. So I want to give you the ins and outs because as nonprofit leaders, we want to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable, making sure that we are filing the proper paperwork and doing what we need to do to maintain our nonprofit. Everyone wants to talk about how you get grant money and how do you increase your following and contributors for your organization, but no one talks about what do you have to do once you get all that stuff. So yes, you may get all these donations and you may get all these grants, but you have to report that information to the IRS, and you have to do it on an annual basis. If you do not submit your paperwork, the IRS will kindly send you a notification saying, hey, we haven't received your paperwork, it's not been filed, and you will get penalized if you do not submit it by this date. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about what is expected from you from the IRS, and I want to talk about how to keep track of those really quick. So the first thing, most nonprofit leaders know that if they are receiving money, generate income for their nonprofit, then that means that the year after, on that calendar year, from if they have a calendar year from January to December, that following May 15th, the IRS is expecting you to submit a 990. Nonprofits have to submit a 990 to the IRS. That is what their tax filing is for nonprofits. You submit a 990. However, they have multiple forms, and based off of how much money you've generated will determine which form you fill out. So if you're a small nonprofit, you're just getting started, you have not generated more than $50,000, then you are expected to fill out a 990N. And you're justifying saying, hey, this is what's going on with my nonprofit. We did not generate more than $50,000. Now, in the flip side, when you are submitting paperwork and grant proposals, most of the time they ask for your 990 because they know that that is like your tax return for your nonprofit. So if you turn in a 990 NF, then they're going to ask for a audited financial statement, or they're going to ask for your accountant information, which would be your income expense statement or statement activity or something that you have generated from an accountant or bookkeeper through that year to justify where that $50,000 or less was going. So if you're a nonprofit and you have generated less than $50,000, know that by May 15th of the following year, you have to track where that money went by submitting a 990N. Less than $50,000, 990N. So what if you have generated more than $50,000 but less than $200,000? Well, there's another form for you. You will fill out the 990EZ, which is a shorter modified form of the 990. And there are schedule attachments that go with that based off of certain questions. So if you say certain things about, unbusiness related income and other things like that, you're going to have to explain those things by using different schedule attachments. And that information will be detailed from the IRS website. You can find all these forms and all this information on the IRS website. So make sure that when you're filling out these forms for the IRS and you Google 990 or 990EZ, make sure you're going to the IRS website. Do not go to all these other side websites that are trying to get you to pay for you to file it through them, especially if you're just going to check out the information and you're just getting the instructions on how to fill the forms out. So make sure you're going directly to the IRS website. So if you're a nonprofit, you made less than $200,000 last year, and you have less than $500 in assets, you will be filling out the 990EZ. All right. The 990EZ is the form that you will fill out, and you have until May 15th to fill this form out before the IRS sends you a letter saying, hey, we haven't heard from you, but you have a nonprofit and you haven't told us about your funds that you've generated last year. So remember, less than $50,000, you're filling out the 990N. Less than $200,000, but more than $50,000, you're going to fill out the 990EZ. For everybody who has made more than $200,000 and has more than $500,000 in assets, you will be filling out the regular 990 form. So with this 990 form, they're going to be asking you information about how you generated income for your program. They're going to be asking you about grants that you have received. They're going to ask you about donors who donated over a certain amount. You're going to have to lay out for them where the money came from and what you did with it. You're going to have to give the funders information, and all of that information will be due. You're also going to have to track anybody who made more than $100,000. So if you have staff members, board members, anybody, you're going to have to write out how much you paid them. My hair is in my eye. How much you paid them. And especially if you paid somebody more than $100,000, you have to track that information on both your 990EZ and your 990 form. So those organizations making more than $200,000, generating more than $200,000 in revenue, make sure you're filling out the 990. If you are classified as a private foundation, then you will be filling out the 990 PF. I'm sorry, not NF, PF. So that is for public foundations. Any public or private foundation that is formed will fill out the 990 PF. So all the other charitable organizations, you're either going to fill out the 990N, the 990EZ, or the regular 990. If you are classified as a foundation, whether public or private, you will fill out the 990 PF. So those are the things that you must turn in every year. Remember, they will revoke your nonprofit status if you do not turn in your paperwork. You must turn in your paperwork by May 15th. That's why it is so important that when you are generating income throughout the year, when you are getting donations throughout the year, you must track that information. So whether you're using QuickBooks, whether you're using Excel, whether you hire a bookkeeper, whatever that looks like, you must track this information because that's the information that they're going to ask you. So if you're a small organization and you generate less than $50,000 a year, make sure that you have your ducks in a row. However, if you are making more than $50,000, you definitely have to track your salaries of your employees. If you're paying board members or if you have any members that are getting paid, they want to know how much money they got paid in that year. They also want to know anybody who's making more than $100,000. They want to know exactly where your money that's coming from, people who are donating more than $5,000 to you, who they are, what their address is. So they want you to track that information. So you must have the proper bookkeeping throughout the year because the IRS is going to ask you for this information. Make sure that I like to say you have an extra set of eyes. So if you're the person who is tracking the bookkeeping throughout the year, make sure you hire a CPA or another person who can reconcile your books and make sure that everything is accurate. Because if you ever get audited, that person will be able to back you and say, hey, this is what we've been working together for on the past year. So I know that this is accurate to the best of our abilities. So make sure that the most important things when starting a business is, do you have your finances together and you're doing everything legally correct? So you need to make sure that you have somebody who you can go to for legal advice and somebody that you can go to for accounting advice. So as I recap, like I said, if you are a nonprofit and you have received less than $50,000, you will be turning in your 990N by May 15th of this year. If you've made over $50,000, you will be turning in your 990EZ only if you made less than $200,000. If you made more than $200,000, you will be turning in your 990 form. And if you are a private foundation, you will be turning in your 990 PF. All of these forms can be found directly at the IRS website. All you have to do is Google the name of the forms, 990 forms, the 990 forms for nonprofits. Google it and make sure you're only going to the IRS website. The IRS has forms and they also have instructions for every form that you have to fill out. If you feel that you can't fill out your 990EZ or your 990, yes, you can ask somebody, but that's why it's important to have a bookkeeper or accountant or somebody who you work with regularly throughout the year, because if you have questions, that's when you can go to them and say, hey, based off of this statement that you gave me, or we worked together on which area should I put this information in, where should this information be put? So then you'll have an extra set of eyes as somebody who is more in tune with finances and language that the IRS may be using. So, like I said, make sure that you have your accountant in order. Make sure you're tracking donations, salaries, who's donating to you, your income and expenses. All of that stuff should be tracked on a regular basis so that you'll have everything you need to fill out your IRS forms each year. So remember, they're due on May 15th. So you have a little time to gather all the information you need. Make sure you check out these forms on the IRS website so that you will be prepared, because after May 15th, they will send you a letter and let you know that they have not received it, and that there will be a penalty applied if you do not turn in this information, and they can potentially revoke your nonprofit status. So make sure you stay on top of all this information. Make sure that you are holding your board members and everybody accountable to make sure that all the policies and procedures for your organization is in line and being executed. As always, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I don't mind helping if somebody needs some assistance with these forms or where they can find these forms. I hope you all have an amazing Tuesday and continue to be a thriving nonprofit. You all have a great day.